Hey, welcome to this next video in the private equity fund series. Thanks for all the comments and likes and all that and messages. I think that right now in particular is one of the greatest times to start getting all of the pieces together because I think 2 months from now we're going to see opportunities like none of us have ever seen in our lifetime when it comes to micro private equity. I think there are going to be people that were thinking about selling their business or may have had it on the back burner that 2 months from now, once things get back to normal, are going to be ready to sell. And you need to be positioned to be able to take advantage of that. And I think that best way, the best way to position yourself to take advantage of that opportunity is to be partnered in a private equity fund or have your own private equity fund with partners. As most of you know, what I do is I partner with folks and I put together a private equity fund structure and we go out and we do deals. So now let's talk about why that is. I think in a lot of videos sprinkled throughout, I talk about some of the benefits to having a private equity fund. And, we're on a call with some of the clients in the program right now. And we're just talking through why, the benefits, and some of it was prompted by a client talking about what they're up to. But the whole thing for me is if you're going to have a business, there are a lot of reasons that you might as well have that business in a private equity fund structure, especially if you're going to buy a business with the plan of buying more than one. So the first thing is why you should even buy more than one. And I've talked about that in this series of just the only way to protect yourself. We see it in our portfolio right now. We have those businesses that with this whole coronavirus, and I know that there'll be people that watch this later, and so but everyone will know what the situation was and is right now. But with that whole situation, there's some businesses that are benefiting. There's some businesses that aren't. And the only way, 3 months ago, no one could have predicted this. And the only way that you are able to protect yourself in a business environment, there were restaurants that have amazing brands, that have incredible loyalty, that are very have great profit margins, great location, everything lined up perfectly. And somebody bought that and closed on that business 2 weeks before, a month before, 2 months before, 3 months before the coronavirus hits, and now they're completely out of business. And they can't do they can do takeout, that kind of thing, but you're not going to make the same amount of income. So, and then you have the other businesses like gyms where, people just gonna cancel, get out of those memberships. You have spas where people just aren't gonna, there's nobody that's going to the massage. And in a lot of cases, there are people that bought those types of businesses that, 2 months after they bought that business, it goes to zero. And so there's a huge benefit to having a diversified portfolio. So if you're gonna buy more than one business, which I don't think you should buy a business if you don't plan on buying more than one. It just like I would be, remiss in not fulfilling any level of fiduciary responsibility if I told you that it was smart to just go out and buy a single business. That's not smart. It's not what you should do. If you're going to do that, understand that you're basically gambling with your money, not investing your money. It would be the same as a financial advisor. A financial advisor who's getting commission off of telling you that the only stocks you should buy is this particular stock. You want to be aware of that, and no financial advisor worth their salt is going to tell you that you should just be in one stock, because that's a very dumb strategy. And so now, I've talked about starting a business, and obviously, if you're going to start a business, that puts you behind a ball of being able to have a portfolio because you have so much work to do to get that to profitability. And so, investing your time and your effort and all that. So if you're going to have this diversified portfolio, which is the smart thing to do, then you've got it to do it in the private equity fund structure. But there are five other benefits beyond that I think are important to consider. The first one is it's easier to get investors. And the cool thing when you're talking about a fund, like literally the whole point of the fund structure is to go out and raise capital. Now, investors love that structure because there are some protections and they get to understand your strategy. They also love the fact that, hey, this is a diversified thing. When somebody's looking at just your deal, all of a sudden they've got to get very detailed. They got to get into the nitty gritty of what is this business, because if that they're trying to line up everything like the restaurant I mentioned, and they know that even when I line up everything, and this is the perfect spa, something that I've never heard of before in my life, like 3 months ago I never heard of coronavirus, something that I remember when we owned a Subway in Chattanooga, and the we were excited. It was close to a hospital that was expanding, and the next thing we know, the city comes and says, "Hey, we are claiming eminent domain. We're claiming eminent domain. This is what we're going to give you for your property, and we're tearing down this building that you bought and that your Subway is in." And so you have all of these things that just are unexpected. And so investors appreciate that about a fund as well. So number one is access to investors. The other thing is access to other types of financing. As opposed to a small business, when you're dealing with a fund, there's a certain level of sophistication in the reporting and everything that you're doing, where they understand, wow, it's easier for us to fund you than what the average small business person brings in for as their financials. So that's something else to consider. And in that same vein, the next benefit is that when you're dealing with sellers, you just get taken more seriously. So part of that is, okay, like if I've got the exact same offer and one is from this fund that I don't know who it is, but they are a fund. I know what a fund is. Like, I haven't heard of this brand, but I know what a fund is. And then I have Joe Schmo, who the average business buyer hasn't even started a LLC to buy a business. Like, hey, like, I'm an individual, I'm trying to get into business, I want to buy your business. Now, if you're the seller, it's really simple. Like, you have even if you think this guy isn't a big fund, if you just think, wow, like this guy has done the work to create a fund over here, and this guy hasn't, and they've got the same offer, I'm going to go with this guy. And it may even be that it's not as good an offer, and I'm still going to go with the fund. Now, that's one part of dealing with the sellers. The other thing with sellers is that they're going to feel more comfortable offering you seller financing as well. Now, when it comes to buying these businesses, one of the reasons that I like to encourage clients to focus on running a fund is more of a psychological effect. So that person that wakes up in the morning and they see themselves as the person that has just bought a spa, it's very easy for them to see themselves as a spa owner. So if the person is going in every day, they're working the spa, they're trying to grow this business, it's after a while that person that maybe a few months ago was focused on buying businesses, wanted to get into business finance, it's easy to get sucked into being that spa owner and getting very comfortable with that. And then that thing hits you that you weren't expecting. You realize, like, man, like this wasn't my plan. Like, I didn't get into this to be a spa owner. I got into this to have a portfolio of businesses. The reason I like starting with the fund is that you're never confused. You know every day your responsibility is generating a really great ROI and a really great track record for your fund. And that's perfect because it brings us to the next benefit. The next benefit is building your track record. With these businesses and deals that we have, I've had so many people that come back to me. It's like, okay, like, man, I love what you're doing. I want to start a fund. And literally, I was talking to old client in Canada just the other day who's looking to do a fund. And, when you've got uh, that kind of aspiration, it's great and it's cool to get started whenever you are, wherever you are. And like that, it's better to get started than not. But if you had gotten started, or I've got clients that if they had gotten started with their first deal and recorded the ROI of those deals, then now they've got this track record. They've got a track record of having assets under management. And so the thing that I encourage people is, even if you're not raising money from investors, even if you're not doing any of these other things, it's very beneficial to have whatever deal you're gonna do be under that kind of private equity fund structure, because now you're building that track record so that when you go later and you do want to raise capital, and you want to kind of grow your assets under management, all of that has been built towards that goal. And there are just a lot of different things that you want to have in place as a fund that you're just not going to have in place if you're going out and doing that deal regularly. And the thing that I tell people is, the cool thing and the most powerful part of this is that when you are a private equity fund manager, and you go out and you do a deal and you only get a 18% return. Me personally, if I buy a business, I only get an 18% return. I'm like, oh my God, this was a huge failure. This was a huge, huge failure. And so what's awesome is that even a failure, it for us is a huge win in private equity. Now, the truth is, what you should be able to do is hit the ball out of the park, and that becomes a different level of motivation. When you're trying to get these really great returns and you're getting a 30, in our space, like, it's not crazy, especially on a cash on cash basis, to get 40, 50% returns. And when you can show that, that just becomes mind blowing. Even though for us, it's like, okay, like, that's what we expect. So that's on the high end. But the great thing is, crap hits the fan and you only get the 16% returns. There are a lot of investors like, I wouldn't be upset with that. So when you move into that world, there's a lot more room for error, and there's just a lot more room for that upside, and being able to blow your investors away with returns that we consider to be normal, at a without any crazy deal structures, capital structures, any of that. You're buying a business for a 3 multiple, which I like to get it less, and you're doing it for all cash, which I would never do, which both of those things increase the return. But even at that level, you're talking about a 33% return. That is unreal for the average person that's just looking to be an investor. And then the final thing that I think is important is that you're positioning yourself for massive, massive upside. For me, I don't have a desire to be a billionaire. It just isn't something that excites me. I like lifestyle, and like, there are other things. I think that for the things that I desire, I love doing business. I love the freedom of doing business. I love to be able to say no to anything that I don't want to do, and that's what's most important to me. But there are other folks that want to do really, really huge things. The cool thing is, even for me, no matter what I'm doing, I want to model after the billionaire, because if I do what the billionaire is doing and I hit 1% of that, I'm doing amazing. That's 10 million. You know what I mean? So if somebody's doing a billion a year and I can do 1% of that, then I'm happy. So I want to kind of model myself after what's creating massive, massive, massive wealth on a consistent basis, not just, oh, somebody got lucky here. There were 100,000 social networks and Facebook made it. You know what I mean? There were 20,000 photo apps and Instagram made it. So I don't want to do that. I want to see where were there few numbers. Not everybody's going and just starting a private equity fund. So you're talking about very few numbers and just billion-dollar fund after billion-dollar fund after that you've never heard of. They're just endless numbers, and so I want to get into the game and be among the top players, and so this puts you in a structure and with a model and with a strategy that puts you in a billion-dollar game, as opposed to what a lot of people play. When you're starting that small business and that's what you're focused on doing, you're focused on a $500,000 game, $1 million game. And it's okay if that's your goal. It's okay for your goal to be $1 million, but it's a lot easier. It's a lot smarter. It's a lot better to get that $1 million in the billion-dollar game. Whereas if you're competing against a lot of other $1 million gamers, then in that $1 million game, then it's actually just tougher. And so, what I help people do is just like, hey, let's level up and let's play this game that none of your friends are playing. I always talk about that kind of cocktail party test. I want to be doing the thing that when I talk about it at a cocktail party, not only is nobody at that party doing it, but they don't know anybody else that's doing it. And that's the kind of game that you should be trying to play as well. Thanks so much for watching the video. I hope this series has been great. Be sure to subscribe. Ask me questions. I try to guide the content based on the questions that you guys are asking. And I'll also be doing a live coming up. So when you hit subscribe, hit notification, because some of the times you guys to hit me and you're like, hey, you're on live and I didn't know, and da. So you got to hit notification because it doesn't notify you unless you do that. Thanks so much. Look forward to the comments. Thanks for watching the video.